Hey everybody, Mike Tatarski here in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. First time streaming in a little while. Just wanted to do hopefully what will become a regular series, but a kind of update on what's going on here in Vietnam beyond just coronavirus. Um, if you have any questions about anything in Vietnam or what's going on here, what life is like here, feel free to ask as we go along. Um, so coronavirus is still more or less the top headline here, but things have really improved over the last couple of weeks. If you watch my previous streams, you know that things got fairly serious after an outbreak started in Da Nang in late July, but now the country has gone. Tonight makes it 8 days without any detected community transmission of the coronavirus. Here in Ho Chi Minh City, basically everything is reopened. Bars, nightclubs were allowed to reopen a couple of nights ago. Cinemas have been open. I've been able to see Tenet on the big screen, which is nice. Da Nang is slowly reopening. They restarted passenger transport, so flights are back, although on a limited basis. But I think takeaway restaurants are still available there. So Da Nang is still not back to normal, but they haven't had any community transmission, like I mentioned, for 8 days. So that's good to see for Da Nang. And the rest of the country is in pretty good shape, which is great because, like I said a few weeks ago, things were looking pretty concerning. But um, this wave appears to be back under control. And now the next step is figuring out what's going to happen with some sort of international reopening. It seems potentially on the 15th, they're going to start allowing commercial flights from a few select Asian cities. But these will still only be for experts or managers that are kind of pre-approved, Vietnamese nationals, of course. Hey, Mark in Los Angeles, thanks for watching. Still no talk of tourism here. That's not going to happen, I would assume, until there's some sort of vaccine. They're talking about the idea of a travel bubble within ASEAN because most of Southeast Asia is doing, maybe not most, but several other Southeast Asian countries are doing pretty well in terms of their virus control. But it remains to be seen what happens with that. But as of now, the borders are still closed, except for select cases. Um, yeah, so that's in case anybody's just joining, just starting with a bit of an update on the last couple of weeks in Vietnam news. So coronavirus is going really well. There's only 128 active cases nationwide. No community infection detected in 8 days now, as of tonight. So that appears to be back in good control, and it's still unclear where that Da Nang outbreak how it started. They never figured out who patient zero was. So that remains a mystery, and I guess it will remain a mystery. But life is just getting back to normal, and like I said, here at Ho Chi Minh City is entirely normal. You're still supposed to wear masks, but a lot of people are not, I have to say, from being out and about. So people are pretty confident here. Yeah, Sankyu said street food needs to survive this. Yeah, I mean, thankfully, street food is still going. I know. I mean, there's a lot of economic pain despite the public health successes, or maybe because of that. There's still plenty of street food around, but lots of businesses have also closed, and people have lost jobs and all of that. So, but street food will definitely survive. So pretty much too big to fail in Vietnam. So a couple other big stories this week. There's a trial underway in Hanoi over a land dispute that occurred in January of this year that saw three policemen and one villager killed in a rural part of Hanoi. It's been a really sensitive topic throughout the year. It's still not entirely clear what exactly happened. It's been a few years now, kind of a dispute between the government wanting to build a military airport and villagers not wanting to give up their land. So that trial is, like I said, is going on in Hanoi. There's 29 defendants. All local villagers and prosecutors have recommended the death penalty for two of them, and then various prison sentences for the other 27. That's expected to wrap up on, I think, Monday or Tuesday of next week. But like I said, that's been a really sensitive topic here. It's a village called Dong Tam, or a commune. So that's kind of also been in the headlines here the last few days. And if anyone has any questions about anything going on in Vietnam, let me know. I'm hoping this weekend or next week I can do a stream from outside somewhere. It's a little tricky with the time difference since a lot of you guys are in the US. I can't really do much during the day because it's overnight in the States. Yeah, Mark says it's amazing to see how fast Vietnam was able to get the virus back under control while the US and other countries struggle so mightily. I agree. And I mean, they kind of did it the same way they did back in March and April during the initial wave. I mean, Da Nang was under the strictest lockdown we've seen in Vietnam. So it's that mix of, again, uh, targeted lockdowns, really rapid contact tracing, extensive contact tracing, and effective testing, aimed at the areas where they knew outbreaks were happening. And yeah, it's once again been very impressive. I mean, there was a couple weeks where people were pretty worried. Not as much down here. We didn't have many cases, but within the last week, it's become pretty clear that this is back to they got a handle on it. I mean, we'll never know if there's cases that they may have missed because there hasn't been mass testing nationwide. But confidence is there. I mean, domestic tourism is still down a bit. We had a national holiday last week, and a lot of popular destinations reported really low numbers. But that'll come back. Like I said, here in Ho Chi Minh City, things are, you barely even be able to tell there's a pandemic going on in certain parts. So yeah, that's great to see. Um, let's see, what else have we had this week? So VinFast is a car company started by Vingroup, which is Vietnam's largest private corporation. And this week they announced that they bought a testing facility in Australia, Victoria State, which is an interesting move. As far as I know, that's the first land they purchased overseas because they want to expand to the US next year. We'll see if that actually happens. That's a tough market, and it's still a young company. But so yeah, that's VinFast. They're expanding, at least in terms of testing facilities, to Australia. They also launched a luxury SUV that's going for around $160,000, which is a lot of money. But that's been a really interesting company to watch since over the last year or two since they got off the ground. And again, if anyone has any questions about anything going on in Vietnam, I'm hoping to turn this into a regular series of updates from here. So we'd love to get some questions on coronavirus or anything else, what life is like in Vietnam, you name it. Um, Also, just saying that so Da Nang is reopening its beaches. If any of you have been there or know about Da Nang, obviously it's on the coast, really beautiful part of the country. But I don't know if this connection is working. It says, okay. So anyway, so beach is reopening in Hanoi. Da Nang. That's good. Um, one interesting story from the last week. So South Korea is a huge labor market for Vietnam. There's thousands of Vietnamese workers there, and a special flight brought 50 or a little over 50 babies under 1 year old back to Vietnam from Seoul without their parents who are working in South Korea because they couldn't afford to take care of them there. So they flew back with volunteers and are now in quarantine with visiting family members. So that was quite an interesting development. Mark asked, does the media in Vietnam cover U.S. politics? They do. I mean, mostly the presidential race. So that but kind of, I mean, not very, very in depth. It's just kind of, Trump said this or Biden did this. So the presidential race is certainly being watched. But beyond that, I mean, when the protests were bigger a month or two ago, there were articles about that as well. But again, kind of just the basics of what's going on. But certainly as the election gets closer, which what I guess is less than 2 months away now, there'll be a lot of interest. Oh, and also, what's the view of the growing rift between the U.S. and China? Yeah, that's a good question. That's definitely being watched here because China is hugely important as an economic partner, and of course, it's a neighbor. Um, but China is deeply distrusted and disliked here. So interestingly, President Trump actually has a fair amount of support here because he's seen as tough on China. Now, I mean, of course, that can be debated, but that's how he's seen here. Um, so people, your average person is probably in favor of the U.S. Definitely a closer engagement with the U.S. and moving away from China. It's a little trickier for the government um, and the military at higher echelons because China is so close and so big and so powerful. It can't be dismissed or ignored. So I think there's a bit of welcoming of the U.S., wanting to be more supportive in the South China Sea or the EC as it's called here, but also a bit of, you know, we have to wait and see what actually happens if push were to come to shove at any point. Urban Myths asks, is there any reaction to Trump saying that U.S. soldiers who were served in the Vietnam War were losers? I haven't seen anything about that in local media. Um, I mean, I don't think that would really catch on here because he was talking about, or reportedly talking about Americans and not Vietnamese. Though there isn't much talk of the war here, at least not in national media, unless it's like a holiday for the end of the war or something like that. So I haven't really seen any coverage about that topic. But yeah, I mean, back to the U.S. and China with Vietnam, they kind of have to walk a fine line because they, of course, want to be closer to the U.S. That's also a big economic partner, but they can't be seen as, um, you know, doing anything that would anger China because China is very powerful and has a much more powerful military and can make Vietnam's life quite difficult if they really wanted to. You guys seeing some more questions here? So if we have new viewers, I'll just give a quick reset. So Mike Tatarski in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, giving what will hopefully become a regular series of kind of weekly updates on what's going on here. Um, so in terms of the coronavirus, things are very much under control. We've gone now 8 days without any detected community transmission. Da Nang is reopening slowly, but it's reopening. So there's flights out of there again. Although I think several provinces are testing arrivals from Da Nang when they get to the city. I know Hanoi is telling people coming from Da Nang that they have to quarantine for 14 days. Here in Ho Chi Minh City, life is pretty much normal. Nightclubs were allowed to reopen a few days ago. Most other businesses have been open for some time now. Cinemas, for example, are back. We got Tenet opened, the new Christopher Nolan movie that opened before it did in the US. So I've been able to see that twice now actually, and really enjoyed it. Um, yes, now kind of that's back under control. The big question is what happens with international flights resuming. So the borders have been closed since late March for everybody except special repatriation flights for Vietnamese and select foreign experts. There's talk of resuming flights on the 15th, so in 5 days, from cities like Tokyo, Gwangju, Taipei. There had been talk of Seoul, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen now as South Korea is having issues again. Um, so it'd be a few select commercial flights, and people would still have to quarantine. So that still does not mean tourism is not coming back or anything like that. Um, and also, people coming from those countries would have had to be in them for at least 30 days, so no transit passengers or anything like that. So if you're expecting to be able to come from the US anytime soon on a normal flight, that's not going to be happening for quite some time, or most of the rest of the world, to be honest. Because the tourism is still a long way off, which is hurting a lot of businesses and the many people here who work in that industry. But it's been seen as a necessary sacrifice for public health. So, and the results have been a little hard to argue with. I mean, we're at 35 deaths total throughout the entire pandemic, and only 128 active cases right now out of 1,059 again throughout the entire pandemic since January. So, in terms of numbers, it's tough to argue with the steps that have been taken here. But yeah, again, let me know if anyone has any questions about coronavirus here or anything else that you may be curious about in terms of Vietnam. So it's definitely striking to watch pandemic news from elsewhere in the world. I mean, even other regional countries like Indonesia, which is really struggling. Um, and it feels got a little used to it now, but it still feels a little weird that we're able to go about our days like almost normal while so much of the rest of the world is really struggling still. But now, I'm now also seeing that the government is considering letting private companies do testing at airports for arrivals. Thus far, that's all been done by the government. The Ministry of Health has overseen all testing, so that would be an interesting step. Presumably, if they're expecting more people to be arriving, if limited commercial flights resume in the next week or two, which is looking pretty likely. But if I know people are asking about U.S. politics here, I think in terms of coverage of the U.S. pandemic response here is would be probably one of just disbelief. I know my Vietnamese friends are, they kind of just wonder. Right, of course, I think most of us probably wonder what is going on over there, what has been going on. But granted, Vietnam and the U.S. are much different countries, much different systems, and all of that stuff. So it's not a one-to-one comparison, but it is baffling to a lot of people seeing how poorly things have gone there. But I'll log off in a minute or two. Just want to see if there's any other questions. In case anyone has just joined, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Just giving a bit of an update on the week here. Of course, coronavirus still kind of dominates the news, but we've gone 8 days now, as of tonight, without any detected community and transmission. There have been some new cases, but they've all been imported and quarantined on arrival, so no threat to the community. And it appears that this outbreak that started in late July in Da Nang is very much under control, which is great to see. And now we're waiting. There's been a lot of talk of reopening some commercial flights, so waiting to see what happens with that. Um, and yeah, people are getting on with their lives as best they can. I mean, given the global economic situation, the economy is definitely taking a hit, especially manufacturing sectors, and I think garments in particular are hurting. So it's not all sunshine here. There's a lot of economic pain going on, but again, the public health outcomes have been pretty remarkable. But if there's not any more questions, I think I'm gonna sign off. Just wanted to give a little update. I'm hoping within the next few days to do something, a stream from outdoors. I know these aren't as exciting.